Hi, my name is Kim McMillon, and I want to welcome you to Poetry Flash's series of talks with the nominated authors for the 44th Annual Northern California Book Awards. Today, I want to welcome author Dorsey Nunn. Dorsey is a recognized leader in the movement to restore civil and human rights to the current and formerly incarcerated people for nearly 40 years. He's done this type of work. As an executive director of the Legal Services for Prisoners with Children and co-founder of All of Us or None, Dorsey Nunn has been a major catalyst for the success of the Ban the Box campaign, which has successfully removed conviction history from applications for public employment in more than 100 cities and 18 states. I am so happy about that. Just those type of things make the world a better place. And to have been a part of that and done that, my hat's off to you, Dorsey. Absolutely. Well, what I wanted to also talk about is your nomination. Uh, I just, I am in awe that you actually wrote a book of this nature. So you were nominated in the area of creative nonfiction, and you were nominated for What Kind of Bird Can't Fly, a memoir of resilience and resurrection. And it was done by you and Lee Romney and published by Heyday Books. You were also nominated with The Last Fire Season, a personal and pyro-natural history by Manjula Martin, Pantheon Press. The Translator's Daughter, a memoir by Grace Lowe Prasad, Mad Creek Books, 10 Bridges I've Burnt, a memoir in verse by Brontez Purnell, Hour of the Heart, Connecting in the Here and Now, by Irvin D. Yalom and Benjamin Yalom, and by Harper Press. So congratulations on having been nominated. That is such a wonderful thing to happen. And this will be the 44th Annual Northern California Book Awards. It will take place at the Main Library in San Francisco, 100 Larkin Street, on Saturday, September 6th at 2 p.m. in the Corrette Auditorium. I will be there. Dorsey will be there, and so many incredible authors will be there. You'll get to meet them, sign books, and really, it's a marvelous. It's just a marvelous time. You get to really appreciate the brilliance in our community and the Northern California community. All these incredible writers and artists, and you're one of them. Just really congratulations. So
first of all, I'm excited to talk to you. You know,
excited to talk to you. Can you start with, we wanted to start with what the book's about. And it's such an extraordinary story. So can you talk about the book for about a minute?
Hey, the book is a memoir. And, I wrote the book for several reasons. One of the reasons that I wrote the book was that I learned how to read in prison. And as a result of learning how to read in prison, it made my cell smaller and it made the world larger. I can remember reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and fantasizing about he had a chance to be read. He came out of prison as Malcolm, and what he did was change the whole course of his life. Reading that book meant that I could go to prison and come home, and I could be somebody different than who they arrested. I read The Invisible Man. And when I read The Invisible Man, I could grasp it theoretically. I didn't catch it until I got out of prison. And when I was talking to a white guy and I was asking him questions. He wasn't looking at me, and he was looking at the white man next to me, answering the questions for him. He hadn't asked the question,
Right.
and I knew that I felt invisible. Hey, I read Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver.
Wow.
I read The Wretch of the Earth. I read a little bit of Aristotle, Socrates, to throw it off, Anne Ryan, James Orwell. And when I learned how to read, the
Yes.
whole world exploded, right? So, like when I went in
Yes.
at
Yes.
19, I didn't know how to read, uh, and I didn't know how to reason. And one of the reasons that I thought that I actually was unable to read was because when I moved to Menlo Park in 1955, 25% of all white people left probably in the first 90 days that we moved in. I didn't have a presumption of innocence, and guilt was not required. They was jacking us at every point of going across the bridge. And Highway 101, which is your oldest freeway in Northern California, the Bayshore Freeway, was a dividing line between us and the white people who stayed across the bridge. So like when everybody left, it wasn't just a question that they left. What did impact did that have on the educational system that we were subject to? What
Yes.
impact did it have on the food system that we were subject to? What impact did it have on us being somewhat contained? So, like, I was locked out before I was locked up.
That's a good point. Can you tell us how long you went to jail when you were 19? How long
got
did you
out when
stay?
I got out when I was 31 years old, and I went to jail for participating in a robbery where a man was killed.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they asked me was who was with me. I couldn't figure out how that question would make me any less guilty, you know, and I felt horrible at the time. It was like, I hadn't defined the difference between regret and remorse. I regretted being there before the echo of the gunshot left the room.
But you didn't even have a gun. It was
I,
not
I,
you.
I didn't have a gun, but I was there,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
You were
not
there.
only that I spent time in prison, I thought about why I was there.
Right.
It was a set of circumstances that defined who I was long before I walked into that liquor store.
Well, tell us about your book because the book that is nominated for a Northern California Book Award came from those experiences. So, how did that whole process of writing that book come about?
I was, like first of all, when um I'm in 5 or 6 books that people call me out by name,
Oh, wow.
you know, uh, and when my brother Ronald passed, the person who visited me from 1974 to 1981
Mhm.
uh, gave me a gift. The gift was every letter that I had wrote her over the course of that time.
Wow.
And and when I look back on it, uh, and I was at that point probably a co-director of the organization. I was reading the letter, all my letters, and I kept interrupting all of the employees because like I had shoved it down so much I didn't remember everything that happened to me when I was in prison.
Right.
Uh, the other parts of it was that when I learned how to read, uh, I wanted, I thought I was going to serve forever in prison, and I wanted to have a relationship with my kids, and
Mm,
hadn't even started school before I had left.
mm.
Uh, and the other reason that I learned how to read is because when you get life sentence, you daydreaming about stuff like, hell, I'm going to escape.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to know who didn't have extradition treaties with the United States.
At least you're honest.
You know,
Oh,
because like Everybody else who had escaped, they went back to the same spot, you know. And by
Yeah.
the way, I never escaped. Uh, but most of the places that I dreamed about running to when I escaped, I went there after I got off parole.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Tell me about the groups because the time you were in there, the Black Panthers were very strong in the prison system, right?
They were strong, and they I got there in 19 I was arrested in 71. I walked into prison in 1972, and what had transpired in 71 was Jonathan Jackson being shot and killed at the Marin County Courthouse, George Jackson being killed in San Quentin, and the Attica Rebellion happened, right?
Right.
I came to prison less than a year from all of those activities. Uh, and people in prison, particularly Black people in prison, like the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, and the BGF, had political education classes on the yard, and they were teaching people how to read. So,
Beautiful.
you know, they taught me how to read. The price of my education was promising that I would return to the community an asset instead of a liability. That came
Yeah.
out of a document that was written by Thur or Arthur League and Kalima. And it was embedded in a document for SATE that stands for the Self-Advancement Through Education. All around the prison system that Black folks was
Beautiful.
thinking about. Uh, you couldn't deny the practice of racism when you were there.
But you rose above it because
It,
by the time you got out of there,
like say for instance, like everybody is impressed by the fact that I banned the box. Was one of the peoples that
yes.
banned the box. Nobody ever asked me the follow-up question: why was we fighting to ban the box? There wasn't always Obamacare. We was fighting for health care for our children. We want to have access to our families. We want to actually play a productive role in the communities that we were a part of. Crime is not driven by opportunity; it's driven by desperation.
But it wasn't just ban the box. Tell us
No,
more.
it's not just
That's
ban the
just the
box.
beginning.
It's not just ban the box.
Yes.
I sued to get the rights to vote in California in the county jail. I did policy work to help pass laws to get people on parole to vote while they're on parole. So like I helped get uh, tens and tens of thousands of people in California the right to vote because like at a certain point they had everybody convinced that if you committed a felony you didn't have the right to vote. We was dispelling that myth. The other thing that that probably um,
Well, you
bugs me,
also. Oh, sorry.
that
Go ahead.
bugs me a little bit was that all of these people, we got about 900,000 people running in and out of jails and prison in California.
Mhm.
Have you heard of any politicians going to ask them their right to vote and vote for me? Have you ever defined that stuff? So it's like, at a certain point, during the old civil rights movement, people would tell them what was the importance of their vote.
But
Nobody
did
is showing up to tell these guys in prison the importance of their vote. They could be wanting to vote for the educational system that their children
you,
are attending. They want
right?
to vote for these other things that was valuable to the community. We just fought and ended and had the change when they do a census count. Who community do we belong to? Because they used to actually ship us off, and then they account us in somebody else's neighborhood while denying us the resources to survive in our own neighborhood.
Well, when you went to jail, did you stay in more than one jail, or was the
Yeah,
whole
I went
entire
to
time?
jail. I went to jail to Vacaville first. That was
Mm-hmm.
the reception center. I went to Dual Vocational Institution (DVI)
Mm-hmm.
until they held me until I was long enough to send me to San Quentin, and I think I arrived in San Quentin at 23.
You went to San Quentin?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and in
San
fact,
Quentin was a hot spot at that time.
San Quentin was definitely a hot spot at that time. Uh,
So tell us what went on because there was so much going on. I mean, so many major figures in African American history were in
what
San Quentin.
what was going on in San Quentin was that after I learned how to basically read at DVI,
Hmm.
um, I pursued a formal education, and I got a 8A degree when I was at San Quentin. But all
Excellent.
around me uh, was still people being stabbed, people being assaulted, you
Right.
know, and at that point I had blew up and had was up from 45 pounds or thereabouts to over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Uh, and I blew up. And I really did work on myself because
Yes.
I recognized probably after I got out, all of that muscle was only fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
all of that muscle, and then all of that fear. The other thing that didn't happen was that it stopped me from seeing a broader perspective. It stopped me from distinguishing regret versus remorse. So if
Right.
somebody's trying to kill you and somebody's torturing you, you're generally thinking about those situations as opposed to the broader scheme of why you
Right.
were there and what damage did you do to the rest of the community. You know,
Well,
uh,
I just, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Go
you
ahead.
know, at San Quentin, uh, I learned how to engage in public speaking. Uh, when I learned how to read, and they start changing the system from an indeterminate to a determinate sentence,
Right.
I knew that it was also going to mean that the penalties increased. When I learned how to read, I told my friends that I was lifting weights with
Hmm.
that I'm going to go to the law library because if we don't get out here right now, uh, that they're going to hold us for a longer periods of time.
Yeah.
I did a relatively short period of time for my sentence. The other people that didn't follow me to the library and didn't
Right.
follow me to where I was going served probably another 20 to 30 years longer.
Wow.
Uh, and I still had a firm grip that I was supposed to do something important with my life. I
Yeah.
didn't really figure out what I was going to do until I was walking out that gate. And I figured out like for the first 6 years, I worked less than 100 yards from the gate that I walked out of, suing the California Department of Correction, and I learned a little bit about law. I ultimately became an executive director of a public interest law office that was convicted of first degree murder, and I was one of the rare people that actually got to do that. Um, so, uh, in addition to that, when you say ban the box, uh,
Yes.
you're not the only one that said ban the box. I helped coin that term, and Barack Obama said it also. So, like, I walked out of a prison gate, but it's not the only gate that I walked out of, into, and out of. I walked into the White House to pick up my Champion of Change Award, presented by the Barack Obama administration. Uh,
Beautiful.
at a certain point, uh, uh, I had uh, for a short period of time, I used drugs,
Mm.
uh, but I got 7 pieces of property in East Palo Alto, and I helped build Free at Last, a drug treatment center in the middle of the community that I live in. So when it was named the murder capital of the United States, it was some of us that had came home from prison that helped change that landscape. You don't talk about it that way anymore because
Beautiful.
we actually engaged in a fundamental way because we figured out something that nobody else figured out. We went back to prison and started asking people who were still controlling the shots on the streets, uh, that people were being injured and dying over crumbs. And we actually talked to them, you know. So it's
You,
like,
you so you went back into the prison to talk to the prisoners to help them understand what was happening on the outside?
David Lewis went back into the prison. When
Hmm.
I went back into the prison after discharging off parole, and
Right,
so 3 years after I got out,
right.
I did the next 3 years going 20 hours a week back into the prison to see what people needed.
Wow. That is so beautiful. Can I ask you how, when did you start reading? I mean, excuse me, writing the book? What
I
kind of bird can't fly?
I
When did
start
you
writing
start
the book.
writing that?
I start writing the book about maybe 3 to 4 years ago. Uh,
It's
and
amazing.
on my wall, I got a article of Lee Romney because she covered me and she was an investigative reporter for the Los
Right?
Angeles Times. And I asked her, I knew I had something to say, and I asked her, come with me and write a book.
You told, and she agreed.
No,
That's what.
She didn't agree at first. I had to
No?
keep asking her. But one of the things that I knew that some parts of my history she already knew because she reported on it. She reported on Ban the Box. She reported on us giving bicycles to kids in the community. And I figured like I didn't had seen her articles that she wrote about me in the Los Angeles Times. Uh, so, not only did I do that right there, uh, for my homeboys who taught me how to read, some of them they put in the hole and they left in the hole for 20 and 30 years.
My
I
God.
sued after I became the executive director of legal services for prisons with children. I sued the California Department of Corrections for ending long-term solitary confinement.
I'm
So,
so glad.
so like at a certain point when I'm wrestling with uh, how come my book is banned? Some
Yes,
parts
we
of
needed.
some parts of what you hear me say is some of the reasons that I got had to actually consider why my book was banned because I've been suing them and fighting them for a whole lifetime.
Yes. And by the way, your book was just banned yesterday.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this is just amazing that you have received a Penn Oakland a literary award for your book. Am I correct?
yes. Uh,
And and you're the Northern California. You are nominated. Just the idea that you received a note from the state uh,
I received. They didn't even write me. They wrote the publisher and
heyday.
said they wrote heyday and said the book had been banned. Right? That was last night. Like I'm coasting on a high because I was nominated for this award. You know, then by the end of the evening, that even last evening, they told me that the book had been banned. The reason that I wrote the book is that I wanted other people uh, to be able to see that somebody cared enough to write a book about
Yes,
them and for them. One of the reasons that I learned how to read was that when we moved to Menlo Park, uh, and being subject to probably white flight blockbusting and redlining and the collapse of our educational system, uh, I wasn't turned on by the idea of run, Jane, run, Dick, run. I had to have
yes,
something more substantive, and I didn't even know that to the degree that all of that stuff had impacted me until I really started thinking about how far that I had to go back to dig up. Why was I in that liquor store that night? What made me eligible? What made me there? You know, but the other parts of the book, right? Because when they talk about the worst of the worst, uh, that's I knew that they were talking about us. So when he first started talking at President Trump, I waited on him that says, we're going to start locking up homegrown people. Now I'm the worst of the worst again, or my children are the worst of the worst again. The numbers suggest and play out that the disproportionate rate of African Americans in prison means that we can't deny that the target was us, and so stuff that I think about,
Of course, of course.
you know,
You know,
uh,
but the thing about it, as much as the unfairness of it, when I read about the things you've done to restore the vote for people, to change how they're living, to employing prisoners, that was such a needed thing to do. Can you tell us about that organization that you ran for years? And it made such a big difference.
I got to acknowledge not only Lee Romney, but Ellen Berry, who won the MacArthur Genius Award. And when she left, she chose me to actually be the program director of legal services for prisoners with children.
Yeah,
And
pretty big deal.
And probably the first real major suit that we did was sued them to end long-term solitary confinement for people that they locked up that taught me how to read. The other part of it, we sued them because the distinction between working at the prison law office and working at legal services for prisoners with children, their primary base at that time were women. So I'm the guy that actually them fought not only for jock stress, but also Tampax. So
okay. Well, when you gotta do it, or you do it. Okay.
because we sued the California Department of Corrections for inadequate medical care for women prisoners. Also,
Excellent.
And so it was a number of organizations that I had my hand in, like the development of the California Coalition for Women Prisoners. All of Us Are None. The formerly incarcerated and convicted people and family movement, Free at Last. All of these things I had a hand in. When you talk to most of the time when people talk to me, if they talk to me really a long time, pretty soon what they be saying, I done impacted their thought patterns and the language that they speak in. They speak in the language that I helped them develop. So the obscure term that came out of a Mike Davis book, that was brought to popular public speak was the prison industrial complex. That was did by it was an obscure term in the Mike Davis book, and it was brought to public speak by Angela Davis, Ruthie Gilmore, Julia Salisbury, George Galvez, and a handful of us. And we held a conference at Berkeley School at Berkeley University. And it was the first time that intellectuals had started coming back to the movement.
Very important.
When you talk about mass incarceration, and you talk about the new Jim Crow, I'm in Michelle Alexander's book. When you talk about becoming Miss Burden, I'm in Mrs. Burden. When you talk about Richard Stanford's book, I'm in his book. I'm in Cunningham's book. I'm in Until We Reckon by Danielle Charette. All of these people wrote about me before I decided to write the book. I figured out at a certain point, for a certain point, if I don't tell my story, each one of them is telling a little bit of my story. So it's like, I done been in the Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Chronicle, the Tribune, CNN, and all the rest of that stuff. At a certain point, writing this book was important to me because somebody fed me when I was a prisoner with books who you see sitting before you right now come as a result of reading and people teaching me how to reason. So like them banning the book, a lot of people will buy the book. I done spoke at Stanford, I done spoke at Harvard. This book is going to be in a class at UC Berkeley in the fall. But the book was essentially me writing to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people, because some of the lessons that I learned after I got out. While they scrapping for their own life and being tortured, they may not be able to see what's ahead. They may not be able to have a dream what's ahead. And if they see the work that I have accomplished, maybe they could have a dream that can actually be of service, not only to themselves, but to the communities that they're from. It's very important that this book is recognized, not only by people that are out here. It's important that people in prison recognize the book, because I think that I didn't have people get out. My homeboy got out about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And one of the things that he did when we sit down, and all of us as young men, we met up again, and he had served 51 years. And when he got there, we came in and we embraced him, and we sit down, we start talking. When he started crying was he read my book, because I sent one of the first copies to him. And the thing that made him cry was he learned the difference between regret and remorse. So it's like at certain points, them banning the book. Like, I'm extremely honored to be nominated for this book. The point when I received the notice that the book was banned, it added value of how come I want to win.
Yeah.
Because I think that it legitimizes a person like me to have a voice for other people who don't have a voice.
I just want to thank you, because your voice is loud and clear, and it is making a difference. I am sorry that the book was banned, but I know it will get even more notice and create even more positive change for people. And I want to say to our audience that come to the 44th Northern California Book Awards and meet other beautiful people like Dorsey Nunn. Hear their stories, find out how they're making a difference, and how these books are truly, as far as I'm concerned, gold, because it is creating a difference. And I want to thank you for talking today,
Hey,
Dorsey.
just one other thing. I just need
Oh,
to
sure,
I
sure.
need to tell you, it's not just the book being banned. You got a whole system that's being trying to dismantle history.
Yes, that's true.
So it's like what I know and what my experience is what they do to the least of us, they will do to the most of us.
Yes.
To the most part, everybody think that they are exceptional to the oppression that they're gonna bound to run into if they don't change stuff. So like,
Yeah.
I just want to say, my book is small compared to them doing away with the Smithsonian.
Yeah, I understand. Yes. But these are temporary things. We things will change. Things will get better. I always have to say that in my mind, because when you see injustice, you point it out, but you know that that injustice will one day not, it will be changed. And
And
I
by the
believe
way,
things will change.
I need to say the last thing. I'm
Sure.
not an angry black man. I'm a
It's
black man
okay.
that loves people.
Yes.
And so you don't work for 40 years based on anger.
Yes.
I worked more than 40 years based and motivated by love.
I agree. So once again, on Saturday, September 6th at 2 p.m., Dorsey Nunn and a wonderful group of nominated books for the Northern California Book Awards will be at the San Francisco Main Public Library, 100 Larkin Street. Please come. We're going to have a wonderful reception and book signing after the award ceremony, and it's just going to be a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you there. And thank you very much for just being here and listening to us talk about Dorsey's wonderful book. Thank you, Dorsey.
You're welcome.
And